The man who sold the Eiffel Tower twice. Paris, 1925. The city of lights, the beating heart of romance, art, and elegance. At its center stood the Eiffel Tower, rising above the skyline like a steel crown, glittering, immovable, eternal. To the French people, it was more than an attraction. It was a symbol of pride, a monument to progress, an icon recognized around the world. But on one spring afternoon, as carriages rattled down cobblestone streets and aristocrats dined in gilded cafes, a man in a perfectly pressed suit was preparing to do the impossible. Not to climb the tower, not to decorate it, but to sell it. And not just once, twice. His name was Victor Lustig. They called him the Count, though he was no real count. He was a con artist, a swindler, a master of deception who could talk his way into any room, charm his way into any pocket, and disappear with fortunes before anyone realized what had happened. Now pause for a moment. Imagine the audacity it takes to stand before Parisian millionaires and declare with a straight face that the French government had decided to sell its most beloved monument for scrap metal. Most men would laugh at the idea. But Victor Lustig wasn't most men. He knew something about human nature that few dared to exploit. Greed makes people blind. Before we go further, if you're already hooked by this unbelievable true story, take a second right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. Because here on Blood and Fortune, we uncover the wildest stories of money, power, and mystery that schools never dared to teach you. Your support, a like, a comment, a share, helps this channel grow, helps these stories reach more curious minds like yours, and keeps this history alive. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Victor Lustig's scam didn't begin at the Eiffel Tower. By the time he walked the streets of Paris, he had already lived a life straight out of a novel. Born in Austria-Hungary, he was clever from the start, quick with languages, sharp with numbers, and blessed with a face that could melt suspicion. He was destined never for hard labor, but for the world of trickery. In America, he had already conned businessmen with a fake invention he called the money box, a small wooden contraption that he claimed could print real, authentic dollar bills. In reality, it worked only because Lustig preloaded the machine with genuine currency. The unsuspecting victims would crank out a few notes, believe they had discovered a miracle, and hand over thousands for the machine, only to realize too late that it was worthless. By the time he arrived in Paris, Lustig had built a reputation. He was no petty thief. He didn't steal wallets in crowded trains or pick locks in the dead of night. His weapon wasn't force, it was words. Words that could transform fantasy into fact. And now, in the spring of 1925, those words were about to make him one of the boldest con men in history. Let's set the stage. After World War I, Paris was still recovering. The government was struggling with debts, scandals, and rebuilding. Rumors circulated constantly about budget cuts, secret deals, desperate measures. In such an atmosphere, a whisper could become a headline overnight. Victor Lustig seized on one rumor in particular: complaints about the Eiffel Tower. At the time, the monument wasn't beloved by everyone. Many Parisians thought it was ugly, expensive to maintain, and even temporary. Originally built for the 1889 World's Fair, it had outlived its intended purpose. Some critics called it an eyesore. Others said it was too costly to repair. To Lustig, these whispers weren't just gossip. They were an opportunity. Picture this. Lustig, dressed in his finest suit, strolling into the Hôtel de Crillon, one of the most prestigious hotels in Paris. In a private salon, he invited 5 wealthy scrap metal dealers, presenting himself as a French government official. With forged stationery bearing the official seal, he claimed he had been tasked with a highly confidential mission: to discreetly sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap. Now think about that. You're sitting across from a man who looks every bit the politician. He speaks elegantly, carries official documents, and leans in with quiet authority. He says the tower is decaying, a financial burden, and the government has chosen you, one of only a handful of trusted industrialists, to bid on the demolition. Would you question him? Or would the possibility of unimaginable profit blind you? For the men in that room, greed won. One in particular, André Poisson, a dealer hungry for status, took the bait. He wanted the prestige of winning the contract, the chance to brag about his connection to the French government. He didn't see a scam, he saw glory. And so, with a handshake, Lustig sealed the deal. He accepted a hefty bribe, pocketed the money, and vanished across the border to Austria before Poisson realized he had been duped. Most con artists would have stopped there, retired rich, disappeared forever. But Lustig was different. His brilliance lay not just in the scam itself, but in his daring. He returned to Paris, to try it again. And that, my friends, is where this story takes a darker, more dangerous turn. But before we dive deeper into Lustig's second attempt, let me remind you, stories like this don't just entertain, they warn. They show us how fragile trust can be, how greed can cloud judgment, and how even the smartest among us can be fooled. So if you're fascinated by the hidden history of wealth, crime, and power, do me a favor. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video with someone who thinks they can't be fooled. Because trust me, if Victor Lustig could sell the Eiffel Tower not once but twice, anyone can be deceived. This is just the beginning. In the next part of the story, we'll uncover exactly how Lustig dared to repeat his scam, how close he came to being caught, and how this con man went on to trick not just millionaires, but even the most dangerous gangster in America. So stay with me. You don't want to miss this. The setup, the making of a con artist. Victor Lustig didn't become the man who sold the Eiffel Tower overnight. To understand how he pulled off one of the most audacious scams in history, we need to rewind to his beginnings. Born in 1890 in Hostinec, a small town in what is now the Czech Republic, Victor was intelligent from the start. He was quick with languages. By adulthood, he spoke several fluently, and he possessed the kind of charm that could melt suspicion. But what truly set him apart was his obsession with studying people. He knew how to read body language, how to sense ambition, greed, insecurity, and how to exploit it. By his 20s, he wasn't working in factories or farms. He was already living off cons. Small tricks, card games, scams aboard ocean liners. He learned early that the rich often wanted shortcuts, and that desperation made them gullible. The money box scam before Paris, Lustig perfected what became one of his trademarks, the Romanian money box. It was a simple wooden contraption, beautifully polished, with secret compartments inside. To his marks, he presented it as a miraculous invention, a machine that could print real money. Here's how it worked. Lustig would insert a blank piece of paper, crank the machine, and out would come an authentic-looking banknote. The victim's eyes would widen. They'd try it themselves. Insert paper, turn the handle, and watch another genuine note slide out. What they didn't know was that Lustig had preloaded the machine with actual bills, hidden in a concealed slot. The machine only worked until those bills ran out. But by then, Lustig had already sold it, often for tens of thousands of dollars. This wasn't just about money, it was about confidence. Lustig learned to sell dreams, to convince men that they could have power, wealth, shortcuts, if only they trusted him. The rules of the con artist. Around this time, Lustig wrote down what became known as the 10 Commandments of the Con. These weren't jokes. They were rules he lived by, and they explain why he was so successful. Among them, be a patient listener. Never look bored. Never boast. Just let your importance be quietly obvious. Let the other person reveal his political or religious views, then agree with him. Never get drunk. And perhaps the most important, give the sucker something in return. They must feel they are getting value. These principles guided every move Lustig made. He didn't rely on luck. He studied, he planned, and he executed with precision. Arriving in Paris, by 1925, Lustig was a seasoned con artist. He had worked the transatlantic liners, swindled bankers, and fleeced gamblers. But he wanted more. Something that would make him legendary. Paris after World War I was the perfect stage. The city was glittering with wealth in some places but struggling with debts in others. The government faced financial strain, and rumors about cutting costs or selling assets spread easily. The Eiffel Tower, though iconic today, wasn't universally beloved at the time. Many Parisians still considered it an eyesore. Some complained about the costs of upkeep. To Lustig, this was the opening he needed, but the forgery of authority. Lustig created a plan so outrageous that it shouldn't have worked, but he knew human greed could turn absurdity into reality. Step 1. Forged documents. He crafted letters with official-looking seals from the French government, stamped with authority. These documents claimed that the government, facing financial pressures, had decided to quietly sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal. Step 2. Target selection. He didn't approach just anyone. He handpicked a group of wealthy scrap metal dealers, men who had the resources, ambition, and vanity to believe they had been selected for such a deal. Step 3. The stage. Lustig invited the businessmen to the luxurious Hôtel de Crillon, one of Paris's finest hotels. In private salons, over fine wine and whispered secrecy, he unveiled the plan. The tower was too costly to maintain. It had to go, but the government couldn't announce it publicly for fear of backlash. The men listened. They leaned in. They believed. Enter André Poisson. Among those present was André Poisson, a dealer who wasn't the wealthiest of the group, but was ambitious. He wanted prestige, status, recognition, and Lustig could see it in his eyes. Poisson didn't just want the deal. He wanted the honor of being the one chosen by the government. Lustig exploited that vanity. He whispered that Poisson was seen as trustworthy, discreet, reliable. He made him feel like the star of the show. By the end of their meetings, Poisson was ready. He offered Lustig not just payment for the contract, but a hefty bribe to grease the wheels of government approval. Lustig accepted with a smile. The Great Escape. Within days, Lustig vanished. He crossed the border into Austria with Poisson's fortune in his pocket. By the time Poisson realized he had been duped, Lustig was gone. And here's the genius. Poisson, humiliated, never reported the crime. To admit he had fallen for such a scam would have destroyed his reputation, and so Lustig's crime remained hidden. Most con men would have stopped there, retired, enjoyed the wealth, and lived in luxury. But Victor Lustig was not like most men. He returned to Paris. He looked up at the tower again, and he thought, why not do it twice? And that, my friends, sets the stage for one of the boldest repeat crimes in history. Before we dive into part 2, how Lustig dared to sell the Eiffel Tower again, take a moment to support this channel. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss these mind-blowing stories. Drop a like if this story has already shocked you. Share this video with a friend, because trust me, they won't believe this really happened. Stay tuned. In part 2, we uncover the first sale in detail, the reactions, and the breathtaking moment Lustig proved he could outwit an entire nation.